So some of you know me and some of you have never met me before. So just briefly, as I know there'll be people, there might be that lady will come back in again. So yeah, my name is Lucia, and wow, where do I begin? I first probably heard the Om sound, or first started, I didn't even know I knew it. I had heard it at that point, but it was probably my first experience in Earth Sound, which was 13 years ago now, maybe. More. I'm going to go ahead and mute everybody for a moment, and then I'll unmute you once I ask you to say hi. There we go. Just so there's less noise. And we've just got somebody new coming in. Sorry, people are still coming in. So yeah, I went to this camp in Ireland, and it started out as a drumming circle, singing camp, really beautiful space. And there was this magical lady that used to get up early every morning. Elizabeth, I think you know her, and Midori, and she would chant for an hour at 7 a.m. every morning. And somehow I found myself in her tent first thing. And as time went on, it was on for a week, I just found myself drawn there every single day, not having a clue why, not having a clue what the stuff she was singing. I knew nothing about it. All I knew was that we were repeating these chants over and over again. There was drums, there was rhythm, there was joy, there was tears, and I just couldn't get enough of it. And it started me on a journey to many things. I then moved on to doing some work with Chloe Goodchild of the Naked Voice, and a lot of her work is mantra based as well. She also works with the Om. She works with the Bija mantras, and she works with just pure singing, just letting your voice teach you what it will. And so that was quite in-depth work, and we did a lot of work on the Om with Chloe, and we did some theory around it as well, and that's sort of where the first sort of inklings that there was a deeper meaning to Om. And I went on to study then with the College of Sound Healing, which is where I met Alexandra. I don't know anybody else that have come from that world. And again, there we worked with very similar mantras, but in a different, more of a therapeutic way. So it gave me a different angle into these mantras and how they work on the different elements of the body. So so each time it seems like I've been getting closer and closer and closer. And this year I worked with an amazing lady, Lucy Crisfield is her name. And she is a Sanskrit scholar, and she's been studying, I mean, she's younger than me, but she's been studying Sanskrit, I don't know, for 7 or 8 years. And it's like I got so far with all my teachings around the Om, and suddenly she opened this door, and I still kind of feel like I'm free falling with just the depth of knowledge that she has around the Om, around Sanskrit, around, with Sanskrit, you can't actually divide up the linguistic part of the language with the philosophical part of the language. It's all one. And her depth of knowledge is just incredible. And I'm continuing working with her. So, so I'm bringing a slice of that to you this evening. And I'm not a Sanskrit scholar. I know bits and pieces. But I'm really happy to share what I know with you at this point. So this evening we're going to really spend the rest of the time talking about literally 2 syllables, the O and the and I'll give you some information about where it comes from, how to pronounce it, how not to pronounce it, in the words according to Lucy and her lineage. And that also, just before I launch into that as well, is that, I feel the truth of the sharing that I've gotten over the years, and I feel the truth of Lucy's sharing as well. But I'm also aware that there are different lineages and there are different teachings around this. I'm sharing what feels really true to me and what feels really true to my body and to my understanding. but I'm also aware that there are other lineages, and I certainly wouldn't say that anybody's right or wrong here. So if you come with your own understanding, that's great. Maybe just, I guess one of the ways I work is that I gather the information, and then I'll sound it, I'll experience it, and I'll see how it feels in my body and whether it feels true. So that's how I work. So I'd encourage you to do the same. Throw this out if it doesn't feel right for you. But give it a shot. I mean, you're here, so I expect that's what you're interested to find out. So I think that's all about me. Not to mention that I'm also a yoga teacher, so some of the Om and some of that knowledge has come from that aspect as well. So let's begin. So where does it come from to begin with? So there are a whole load of texts and Vedas and Upanishads and that come from the Sanskrit lineage or from the yogic lineage. And the one that describes the Om is called the Mandukya Upanishads. And it's probably one of the shortest. There's only about, I think there's about 12 mantras in it, or 12 paragraphs in it, and in that it describes what the Om is. But before we even go to that, I'm just going to write the name of that down. So if you want to look it up, you're welcome to. So it's Man D K Y A, and I think there's so it's the Mandukya Upanishads, and anything with a line over the letter lengthens the word. Can you see that? Yeah. So that's where the text of the Om comes. And what this means is kind of interesting. Mandukya, does anybody know? Is anybody? Jane, you can't give everything away. But what this word means is it means frog. And you might wonder what would the relevance of frog and the Om be? And the reason the frog is relevant here in this is that the frog has various transformations. So the frog starts with a tadpole. So he's the small little dot, and this tadpole, or not even, sorry, it's not a tadpole, but even before a tadpole, a spawn. So it begins here, it moves on, then it becomes a tadpole, and it swims around in water. And I'm not going to be able to draw a frog, but it's got legs, and so it hops around in the air. So these are three different realms and three different phases of life. So here would be like the physical form. Here we're moving into a more subtler realm, and this is water. Now we're moving into air, and the experience here, the name for it in our work anyway, is the causal, and I'll be going through these in more detail in a minute. There are three different views or three different experiences of human beings. We can experience the physical realm, the subtle realm, which is more like around the mind and thinking and in the minute. And then this more causal realm, which is really the state you might go to if you're in a meditation, or if you're in yoga nidra, this more of a deep sleep state. So these are the different states of the frog. But there's a third state that's beyond all of these. And the idea is that the frog has almost 360 vision. So it has this, so in all of these states, there's still a frog. And he has this vision, and he's always, that essence of frogness is in this physical realm, the subtle realm, and the causal realm. And so this is the fourth part, or the fourth aspect of life. And when we're going to be talking about the Om, we're going to be talking about all of these four. So these are like the different states of human consciousness or human beings. And this will this is really the awareness, the whole consciousness of life or of our experience. So that's just to begin with where it comes from and what Mandukya stands for. So what it describes, what the texts in here describe are all of those different realms. So if we take most of our experience of sounding the Om has probably been a, u, where we've got Aum, or it may have been more of an Om. So where the a, u, comes from is those different states that are described in this Upanishads. So the a describes that physical state, that u describes that dreaming state, and the which isn't a simple it's actually got a dot above it, which changes the. I'll talk to you about that in a minute. This is that deep rest or deep sleep, deep rest state. So these are these different that a human being can experience, and we all, the physical one is probably one that we all can. Okay, I kind of get the physical. It is to be in my physical body, and it gets a little bit more subtle as we move down into the difference. But the physical state is about being awake and aware, and our different levels of being awake and aware might be very different if I've studied yoga for 30 years or if I haven't. So to one person, being aware can be very different to another. But so there are, even within this physical realm, that sense of, but am I also aware of the fact that I'm part of nature? What's my relationship to the table or to it in that physical realm? So there's quite a lot of more definition, or there's deeper layers even within each of these realms. So that's the physical realm. And the sound is we'll make these sounds just to give you sort of that high picture. The oo sound, which is going into that more watery sound, is that dreaming state. And it's so if we can it's more about the mind and more about the senses and more about it's not so much that we're dreaming, it's more the quality that we have when we're dreaming. It's like there are more possibilities, like when we're daydreaming, all the different things that can appear in the mind when we're dreaming. So it's more about the quality of dreaming than it is of the physical aspect of dreaming. And in this dreaming state, everything is a little bit more shiny or sparkly. So that's the second state. So these two states are almost, so we can think of this as more of the mind and thoughts and ideas and creativity. These two states, as human beings, we go from one to the other. We can't be purely physical. Our mind is always kicking in with different thoughts and ideas. So we're always coming in and out of these two states. So they're quite related to each other. And then we have state, and this is the state, as I said, if you're going into a meditation or if you're in yoga nidra, and it's also called the causal state. It's like where all movement happens, and this M sound has got a dot above it, and this is called the anusara. And what this dot, it just changes the sound of the and it brings it more of a nasal sound, and we'll make that sound in a minute as well. So this sound is actually, I wrote out the actual meaning behind it because it's really quite Amazing. So this sound, the translation that they have in the Upanishads is, it's the sublime, lordly power of everything. It knows everything. It's the inner controller or the director or the impulse of everything. It's the womb of everything, and in which all beings come from and dissolve into. So it's that state where you're in deep meditation, and there's a deep sense of peace and relaxation, and you're hardly aware of the physical body at this point. So this is the sound. So that's where our comes from. And one of the problems with have learned it is that what people have done is that they have taken these three different sounds and put them together to make the sound of Aum. And as a word, this does not exist in the Sanskrit language. Aum is not a word. If we want to experience or feel these different states, then we can use each individual letter or each individual sound to experience these states. But putting them together does not make any sense. There is a fourth state. My rubber outer tissue. And what the Mandukya Upanishads tell us is that there is a fourth state beyond the physical, beyond the dreaming state, and beyond the causal state. It's also known as a subtle. Sorry, my writing is probably not the clearest. So there is a third and a fourth, which isn't a state. The fourth, it's simply called the fourth. It's called Turiya, which it simply means the fourth. And the Turiya is Om. And Turiya is beyond sleep. It actually exists throughout all of these, just like the I did in the frog. This Om informs all of the other states. It's the awareness. It's what is always present in the deep rest, in the dreaming, and in the physical. So it's beyond, or it's part of all of these. It's what's always present in all of these. So it's that, I guess if there was a question that we might ask here, the question we might ask once we come to the Om, if we were to ask a question, might be something like, who is experiencing this world? Who or what is experiencing the physical? Who's experiencing the dreaming? Who's experiencing this deep sleep? And that's the question that we might ask when we're in this Om state. So that's the theory of the Upanishads. And what would be really nice would be to maybe get an experience of all of those sounds. Any questions at that point? Okay, let's give it a shot. So,
can I ask? The Om symbol.
Yes. Oh, yes. Sorry, you're right. Yes.
Yeah. I'm just wondering about that, because if you say there's no such thing as Om, as Aum.
Yeah. So the Om symbol, yes, thank you, is, many of you are probably familiar with it. Actually, I can take this out because I'm not going to be. So the Om symbol, there's two of them, but the one we'll look at is the Om system, that symbol that you all probably familiar with. It's got a 3, and then it has a circle here, and then that's the Om symbol. That I have a lovely one here that we've all seen, and they're all over the place. And 3 in Sanskrit is the same, so it represents 3. So it represents the 3 states, the A, U, And so this is 3 states of humans, and this represents the universe. So we are these 3 states, and that we are also the universe. So this circle here, and often you might see this, the circle isn't always attached, and it's really just because of different texts or different fonts and stuff. But this is a circle, so this is the whole universe. So that's the 3 different states, the a, u, that does make up the whole universe. And this is the dot of the anuswara of the sound here. And what this is that this shines a light, or this permeates through all of the different aspects of humanity, or of humans, this Om. So the Om is not just this dot, which is the awareness. It's like we are more than awareness. If we were living just simply in awareness, we wouldn't be in physical bodies. So we do live in the physical realm. So we are all of these things. We are not just awareness. We are also physical beings. We are thinking beings, and we are deep sleepers. So it's like we are all of these things. And that's what the Om symbol teaches us, or that's what it represents. And as I said, what this symbol represents is OM, with the dot over the M. Thank you for that. I'd almost forgotten about the symbol. So let's see if we can just do a little sounding on the different aspects of the Om. So if you just, I could invite you to just sit up straight. You don't have to get into the lotus position or anything. Just take a moment to sit up nice and tall, nice straight back. Just close your eyes for a moment and land into your body. Take a nice deep breath in and out. And let us just surrender into that physical aspect of human beings, the physical body. So as you take a breath in, just let a sigh out. Just as if you're saying a ha, or just to begin making a gentle sound. Let it be no effort, just a falling out of the sound. And just begin sounding that ah sound. And as it resonates through the body, just feeling that sound of ah releasing from the body. Again, not making any particular, just allowing it to rise up from the body. A few more breaths. When you're ready, just maybe bring your hands to your cheeks and just relax and soften your jaw here, just giving your jaw a little massage, maybe opening, closing the mouth, beginning to open up into that sound. And from here, just trying out that ah sound again. So taking a breath in, ah, with a more relaxed and open mouth. Take a couple more. Ah. Ah. And I'm going to just invite you to try out these different sounds. So bringing the mouth closed and just trying out the different sounds of ah by opening the mouth a little deeper each time. So if you take a breath in And close the mouth, and then just begin to open the mouth and feel how the ah sound changes as the mouth opens. Taking a breath in. Ah, just opening and closing the mouth and just feeling and hearing the sound of ah change as the jaw drops and closes back in again. So it's something like this, but it will be different for everybody. Take another one. Just playing around with the sound. And then just settle on one of those sounds. Possibly the one that sounded fullest in your mouth, maybe when the jaw was most open. And we're going to sound it. We're going to take 3 more breaths, just sounding that ah sound together. And then once we're finished, we're just going to take a moment to listen to the resonance of the sound after we've sounded it. So in your own time, your own breath and your own ah sound. We each have a different physical body, so our sound is going to be very different. And make it an easy sound. Don't put any strain or trying to make it as long as your breath can manage. Just be gentle with it. And listen. And the listening is listening with the whole body. Sensations, anything you hear, tingling. So if we want a deeper connection to that physical realm, this is the sound we work with. And if we want to move on to the more causal or the subtle realm, which is the realm of the mind and of ideas and thoughts, senses, we move on to the sound of ooh. And you'll hear the sound of ooh, how it changes, and you might even remember with that sense of the frog, we're moving into a more watery realm. And part of what we'll be teaching in the full course is about how the different sounds relate to the senses, and how these sounds also are what makes up those bija mantras. So when we're talking about the oo sound, we're talking about one of the bija mantras here, that watery sound, that oo. For those that don't know the bija mantras, don't worry. So just take a moment. We're going to pause. The oo sound is made with bringing your lips together, and that's made in the front of the mouth. But we're also you can imagine that you've got a pencil in your mouth, so the lips are quite pursed, so they're coming forward. So the sound it's not a very strong sound. So So bringing the lips forward as though we've got a pencil inside the mouth and making the sound of ooh. Ooh. And so one thing to note whenever we're making these sounds is that you're doing two things. You're making the sound, but you're also listening and you're feeling the resonance of that sound as well. So really bring that into the mind as we try out the ooh sound together. Take a nice breath in, listening and feeling and sensing. Ooh. Let's do two more of those. And rest and listen and notice the effect of making that ooh sound. Maybe you can even remember back on how different the ah sound felt and how it differs to this ooh sound. What do you notice? Where do you notice it? Could you notice difference between the ah and the ooh? So we're going to move on to the sound. And this, just need to explain this a little bit. So this dot above any letter in Sanskrit changes the sound of the word. And the purpose of the dot is to actually shine a light on the actual vowel that's beneath it. So in Sanskrit, there's two dots used. There's also, often it's with a H, you have a dot underneath, and this has a different effect. The dot above kind of rolls the sound back into the body, so it spirals the sound back in. The dot underneath sends the sound outwards. So you might be familiar with that it's at the end of shanti. You often hear shanti. So this is the at the end. So that's the dot underneath. But the dot above, instead of it sending the sound out, it actually rolls the sound back in. So to make the sound of M for this for the third aspect here, the causal realm, what we need to do, let's start by just making the sound of So bringing the lips together. Again, the lips are quite far forward with the sound of So let's just begin. Just let's sound the and have your focus on the lips and the sound coming out through the lips. Now, if you let that go, and now, in fact, when you're making the sound again, can you bring the sound almost as if you're traveling from the bridge of the nose here? Can you send the sound back up so that it's more of a nasal sound that's coming through the nose? So we're spiraling, that's what we're doing. We're spiraling the sound back up into the nose. So it becomes more of an sound than a sound. And it might take a while to get this right. And this is just part of the fun of trying out these different sounds. And there's a reason for bringing the sound back in, and I'll talk about that a little bit when we get to the Om part. So let's take a moment. We're going to take the sound of and this time have your focus on send the sound through the bridge of the nose. So it becomes more like this. And it's quite a short sound. And notice the effect. Try it again once more with the sound coming out through the lips. See what that sounds like. Let that go. And now try it with the sound as though you're spiraling it back up through and in. It's almost as though the lips and the nose are meeting, or the back of the throat rather and the nose are meeting with the sound of the And notice how that sounds in the body. So if we want to work with more of that causal realm, that deep sleep, that deep knowledge, beautiful realm, then we work with the sound of M. And then that brings us to the whole sound of Om. So Om is written with an O followed by this that we've just sounded, and the dot is here on top of it as well. So the O is pronounced. So first of all, the M in Sanskrit, there's very specific, every single letter has a particular length. So the O is one length and the M is actually only half a length. So when we're sounding the Om, the M is we're only sound that half the length of time as we sound the Om. And one of the fallacies, I suppose, in this teaching is that we need to use our whole breath and sound the Om. In fact, once we start getting used to it's incredible. Once we start getting used to sounding the Om in this short way, which we're going to do in a moment, it begins to almost sound like you're ringing a bell. We stop the ringing and we let the vibration travel through. What happens when we're sounding the Om and we let the M go on and on and on, it kind of loses the spark. The whole idea of this M with the dot over it is that it's pointing back at the power of the O. And if we let the M travel on and on and on, we lose the spark and we lose everything that the O is bringing us. So what we want to really do is shine a light or shine. It's like ringing that O bell with this N nasal sound, sending it back into ourselves, the sound of O. So it's the sound of O as in home rather than office. So let's just try this, just the sound of O to begin with. And think of it as home. So it's O. So that's the O sound. And the two of them together, it's quite a short sound. And so the M is that sound with the nasal sound and the O. So the actual sound of Om is as simple as Om. And once we begin to get that precision, we can begin to hear the resonance after the sound, which is really what we're looking for, the resonance after the sound of Om. So just take a few breaths and we'll see if we can sound this sound together. And for me, it's been a huge journey, and it still is a journey, because I have been sounding the Om differently for many, many years. But as soon as I started to practice the Om with this shortened sound and began to really hear in that shortened sound the resonance, the ringing, and the frequency and the vibration that happened after it, I'm not sure I could ever go back. So, so if it's completely new for you, I'm going to just suggest you try it a few times. So let's try it together a few times and just really fall into it and see how it lands in your body. We'll just do it 3 times. Just take a moment, settle the body on the ground, sit up nice and tall. Om. Listen and observe. Om. And this last time, as we sound the Om, I'm going to invite you at the end to place your tongue at the tip of the roof of your mouth, just for a touch, just one touch after you've sounded the sound. And again, just feel the effects of that. Feel what the sound of Om feels like in your body. So we can do 2 things. We can feel the sensation of the Om, and we can hear the sound of it. So use both your senses, your sense of touch and your sense of hearing. So the tongue at the roof of the mouth, just for a moment, it's just a touch at the end of the sound. Taking a breath in and out. Om. So, anybody notice or feel or sense anything? Do you feel like you're shortchanged now that you've discovered that the Om actually doesn't take all that effort and all that breath? Anybody want to share anything? Okay.
Lucy, I was just thinking it was a lot shorter than I was expecting. Yeah.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah.
It is. It is. Yeah. Isn't it great? And that's one of the things. It's like we've been making, I mean, taking all those deep breaths and sounding till you're out of breath actually doesn't feel all that good. It almost feels like it's a competition who can do the longest. And if you can't do the longest, then you're not doing it good enough. And actually what we discover is that life is a lot simpler than that.
Yeah.
I'm a little bit confused, Lucia.
Okay.
Are you saying that the A or is incorporated into the They're
Yes.
not 2 separate experiences.
Yes, I am. What I'm saying is that, so if we take the symbol of the Om, the this is Om, O-M. and the Om includes awareness and all the different realms of human beings. And so it does include the A, U, but as a collective, the sound is Om. You would never sound Aum. That would never be something that you would wish to do. If you wanted to experience different realms, you sound each of the different syllables or each of the different vowels separately, but you would never sound the A, U, which is, what we've been taught for a long time. And I know there are certain lineages that will describe it in that way. But in Sanskrit, the way it's described in these upanishads, Om incorporates all of these.
Yeah, thank you. That clarifies.
I'm a bit confused now. Thank you for bringing that up, actually, Elizabeth. Because are you saying that? Yeah, would you mind explaining it again? So when you're saying when you're chanting it or with the A, I'm always thinking of it as the vowels almost.
It is the vowels. Yeah.
Yes. So, but the three that you're talking about, you're saying you would never incorporate that into the
You would never. So if you wanted to sound Om, this is what you're sounding. 2 letters, O-M. You're never sounding Aum, because that doesn't exist. Those letters don't exist in that way in the Sanskrit language. But A, U, on their own are powerful and very meaningful syllables or very meaningful vowels in the Sanskrit language.
Okay.
For us to experience the different realms of humanity or the different experiences of humanity. But as a practice, if you were to practice the Om chanting, this is what we should be practicing. Makes life a lot simpler.
Because I have heard that. I'm sure we all have.
Well, the funny thing is that, yeah, absolutely. And I had to hear this a few times before I heard it, actually. Because about 2 years ago, I did some of this training with Lucy. This lady taught it, and she told me this, and I still didn't hear it until I did a more in-depth training with her in the last few months, where I really sat down. And it's like we only hear it when we're ready to hear it, or when we can take it in, I think. So I've certainly had to hear it a few times. Yeah.
Really interesting.
And for a lot of the sacred syllables, like the bija mantras, the Lam Vam Ram, also end up with this. This is why in sound healing, Alexandra, that we've been taught in different ways to use the ing sound or not. And I've never understood why until now, or until I've started to learn this work. So there's a lot of information about the different vowel sounds and how they relate to the bija mantras as well. So just one last, unless anybody's any other questions. Just one last thing to share with you before.
Lucia?
Yes.
Sorry, I was just wondering, what does it do to your body?
Well, let's see. I think, how did you experience it? Did you try
It's like meditating. Yeah, it was like meditating.
There you go.
So it kind of affects. Sorry. So it just affects you spiritually, but I think it affects you physically as well, doesn't it?
Absolutely, it does. So when we talked about physically, if you really wanted to work on the physical body, if that's something that you really wanted to do, then you would work a lot with the ah sound. Or if you wanted to really work with clarity, mental clarity, and work more with what they call dreaming state, but it's really it's not dreaming, it's just not being so attached to the physical body.
Yes, I know.
So you can work with, if you if you want to work in a particular way, you can work with all of the different vowel sounds, but the Om itself will work on all of the realms. Will work on the physical,
Okay.
and the emotional and the causal body. So the Om incorporates all of them.
But do you know what it does for the body?
But the idea behind it is that it will balance the physical body. So yes, will affect the physical body.
The immune system and that kind of thing.
Absolutely, yeah. And you can feel the effects of the sounds. They also come, like each of those sounds connect with, like the oo sound I was talking about connects with water. So all the water in your body will be balanced by the oo sound.
Oh, I've loads of that. I've loads of water.
Exactly. So yeah, they have very, very real and physical effects on the body.
Wow. Well,
And I
thank
think probably the best judge of it all is to make the sound and just observe what it's doing to the body, because you're going to be the best teacher of that for yourself, for your own body.
Well, I have diabetes, so I'd be willing to try anything, you know.
Yeah.
Thank you.
You're very welcome, Urs. Very welcome. So where are we? Do you want one last piece, or do you all have to go? Marion.
I'm going to have to go, unfortunately.
Lovely.
Thank you, Lucy. That was really lovely.
Great. Thank you
Interesting.
for joining us.
Nice to meet you all. Yeah.
Take care.
Cheers.
This
Bye.
is just a really small piece, and it's on the Om Shanti, mainly because we use Shanti an awful lot. So this is Santih. This is how Shanti is written, and that's with a sh. So this is Shanti, which is peace. Most of you will probably know that Shanti means peace. And again, this the A has a line over it, so the A sound is extended. So it's not Shanti, it's Shanti. So there's an extra there's an extra length on the A. T's are usually dental T's. They're not t. They're you put your tongue at the back of your teeth, so they're soft T's. They're almost like THs. So so it's not Shanti, it's Shanti. And with Sanskrit, you're supposed to feel how the words or how the language lands in the body should be how it feels. So if it's Shanti, 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 sorry about the Cork accent. I am from Cork as well, I can do it. It doesn't feel very peaceful. But if we've got Shanti, and that H is, it's got there's a falling out of the breath at the end. So it feels peaceful, and it should feel peaceful, because that's what we're offering here when we do the Shanti. So often we get 3 in a row. So if we were to get 3 in a row, this H, there's a few different ways of doing the H. So it could be, where are we? Shanti with the at the end. Or you often hear it, particularly if those who are with Amma, Shanti, which is also valid. But if we were to do the 3 of them together, all that extra breath can often be difficult. So what happens is, if I write it down a second time, and a third time. So when we roll them together, what we can do, or what's valid in Sanskrit, is to change that and put an S at the end, and change that and put an S at the end, and then we do it all in one breath. So it becomes Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. And then you begin to feel the peace of it. So just maybe even try it yourselves. Let's take a breath in. Shanti, Shanti, Shanti. It feels quite peaceful. It feels a lot more peaceful. So, so yeah, just something I wanted to add in at the end, just about more about how to pronounce the T's, are particularly when I'm doing a lot of chanting, I'm trying to relearn how to pronounce a lot of these, because it makes a huge difference how they're pronounced in the mouth. Again, once we'll be talking in the course about where the sounds land in your mouth. We have the guttural, and we have the palatal, we have the dental, and we have the front of the mouth as well. So there's different areas where the sounds land, and that has particular resonances and different effects. So that's something we'll be working with as well. So I think that's all I have to share with you this evening. If anybody has any other questions before we finish, you're very welcome to ask. Sorry for running over. When I did this course before Christmas, I didn't ask everybody where they came from, so I got through an awful lot more. I feel I was a bit rushed this time, but it was really nice to hear from everybody. So yeah, if anybody has any other questions or